Hey y'all, what is up? This is Alchemy. Thank you for joining me again for another video. Now, this is a video I did before, but I wanted to revise it because I got a chance to revisit some of the concepts. But we are going to be talking oppositions in astrology. Now, I like to think of the oppositions also as opportunities, right? For us to learn and grow and challenge ourselves. Anything too easy ain't worth it, y'all. You know what I mean? And God likes to test our might. Okay, it is what it is, right? But the opposites to me also in a way complement each other, right? Like when you think of a color wheel, blue and orange always do it for me. Always do it for me, right? Um, because of their oppositions, there's something very complementary about it, right? So we'll talk about that in this particular video. So we're going to kick it off with the first pair of ops, which is going to be the first house, the house of self, versus partnerships, the seventh house. Now, this is a theme throughout life, always for humans. How we ourselves interact with other people. We learn social studies, I should say, right? But we learn how to be social, and we're social creatures basically from the jump, right? When we come home with our families. We learn how to, find our own set of boundaries while also working with and living with people who are around us. So the house of self and the house of relationships definitely is a big theme of life. And there's a particular proverb that really stands out to me when it comes to these houses that I think surmises everything quite nicely. But basically, it's an African proverb, and it says that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's pretty much what this first house, seventh house dynamic is. It's about yourself, and the house of self is very internal, right? Versus the seventh house. The seventh house is kind of where we're meeting the external world, right? And when we're meeting the external world, it's not just about how you planned it, how you wanted it to go, right? Things outside of you will often come into a situation and you'll have to pivot and respond accordingly to kind of continue along the journey, right? So your relationships, who you got in your back, who has your back, I should say, right? And also the choices and decisions that you're making along the way heavily impact how far you'll go in life. Period. Period. So let's take a look, shall we, right? So the first house is going to be the house of self and identity. Now I wanted to just show these cards real quick in this box. I have the Positive Astrology deck by Crystal Savoy. I love it. It's really a great way to kind of give a quick insight and I just really like it. It's a really cool, useful tool, right? So I'm using these cards as I continue to present the video. But basically, the first house, right? Now, the first house is the house of self. It's the house of birth. It's the house of identity. All things personal matters. It is the internal house, right? First things first, right? Individuals, ones, we look like ones, right? Now I'm a little thick one. I'm written with like that little thick, little kindergarten pencil, right? Some of us are real thin, little ones, right? But we all essentially look like ones, right? So, because I'm the number one constant in my life and you're the number one constant in your life, and we live on the planet together, right? We constantly have to work together when it comes to relationships, right? Which is going to be the house of the seventh house. Now, this is the first of the external houses. This is going to be the house of partnerships, relationships, collaborations, connections, and also commitments, right? Because once you begin to make connections and relationships, people begin to rely on you a little bit more, right? There's something funny about the scales, right? You got two sides of them. So if one ain't here, the other, you know what I mean? There's something about balance that's achieved when we talk about these particular with this particular energy right here, right? And oftentimes, we ourselves are looking towards relationships, whether it's with people or things or places, right? We're often looking for relationships that will help us get towards the trajectory of our goal. So, for instance, if you want to have a startup company, right? It may take a bit of networking, seventh house relationships. If you want to begin a career as a songwriter, right? It may take some courage for you to move across, state to kind of go to where people are going to be in that industry, right? So sometimes you have to even cultivate you yourself, right? You may have to cultivate a relationship with courage in order for you to get there, right? So this is where it comes to self identity, knowing what it is that you want to go after, the behaviors, the mannerisms, the style, your interests, things that are going to really set you up, right? And we're doing this from a very Aries characteristic. Aries is here, so this is the cardinal position of spring, right? This is how we get started. How do we start something? We're active, we're ambitious, we're energetic, we're optimistic, we're driven. Sometimes we're spontaneous, right? But it's basically about you using your force, which is Mars, right? So these are the big hitters that we got from the first house: the drive, the willingness, the daringness, the motivation, and the passion. Now, when we get up to get something started, right? Because we got to get up to get it started. It ain't like the ball is rolling for us. It's going to take a bit of force for us to get that going, right? So it all depends on you, yourself, and your motivation and how you're willing to let those characteristics play out to get you to where you want to go, right? But now where the hell we going? Once that's been decided, right? The seventh house. Okay. Now we can look at where we're going the long ways. Okay. Because it can be a long journey to go across state to become a songwriter. It can be a long journey to get that startup going, right? Most Rome wasn't built in a day, right? But we make decisions, we make choices, okay, when it comes to the scales of Libra, right? And here we're thinking about what's going to delight us, right? The things that we romance over, okay? The things that we love, the things that we find charming and harmonic, basically. And we doing this from a space with our plans about and around love, right? Love, a word that comes and goes, but few people really know. I'm sorry, that song just be hitting my spirit sometimes, okay? And I ain't Christian like that. But do we really know what it takes to really love somebody? Okay, love is about choices. As much as Taurus is representing love from the second house about possessiveness and, really, driving deep because you got your eyes set on what it is that you value, at the end of the day, it come back to some shit like this right here. What kind of choices you gonna make? Does it really balance up? Okay, what decisions are you thinking about? Considerations, because this is an air element when it comes to Libra, right? So it's a very cerebral thing. In fact, a lot of times we say things like, "I think I love you," right? You got to think. Yes, I do. That's what love said. I ain't say it. That's what love said. Okay. But anyway. Yeah, I'm a little passionate. I got a lot of fire in my chart. It's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna wind it down because I want to get to the point of this, right? But basically, the first house is the position of self internally, right? Where you want to go, where you yourself are going. And the seventh house is the external world of how you're going to get through it. Okay, what decisions, what choices do you got to make? What connections do you have to have, right? Sometimes you have to have credentials or people who are backing you, okay? And this is where the seventh house energy comes from, right? So now we got Venus and we got Mars, okay? Let's just talk about the planets real quick. Because anytime these two are together, they be cutting up, okay? And they are together often. In fact, they're opposing each other in the seventh and the first house, and they also oppose each other again in the they also oppose each other again in the second house and the eighth house, which we'll talk about the next set of opposites in the next video, right? But these two basically are complementary planets that do need each other, right? But oftentimes can find themselves opposing one another, right? For the need to learn, for the need of understanding, okay? Because if you are passionate about something that you love, quite naturally, the passion and the desire are really going to be there to support it, right? If you love pie, okay, I love pie, all right. Swiss, like the Swiss pie, key lime pie, meringue pie. I do like cherry pie. I love apple pie. Love apple pie. Okay. I'm kind of like the bubble gum of pies, right? But that's me. That's me, right? That's my personal matters, okay? However, I don't want to overdo or throw my body out of whack, right? Out of alignment, right? So I have to watch my relationship, okay? Although I'm very passionate about pies, okay? I also have to consider my relationship with the pie, right? Because too many sweets can do bad things to the body, right? And just, sometimes, too much is just too much, right? So it is about balance and harmony when it comes to the seventh house, right? I like to think of the person in the case study of Schmeagol. Schmiegel's a person who's very much was passionate about the love of the ring, okay, but he let his love for the ring and his passions completely throw him out of whack. And that can happen sometimes with these two planets, right? Mars and Venus. Mars love to fight, Venus love to love. And don't we like to fight for the things that we love? Watch kids do something. If they want a toy and they really about their toy and they about that life. Mm-mm. You have to get them babies apart from each other. Look, y'all better behave, okay? That's what happens sometimes. But this is the passion and this is love and this is how this often plays out, okay? Now, we kind of get an idea of the seventh house, the first house, well, let's talk about the alchemy first of all, right? First house, 1. Seventh house, 7. So when you take your 1 and the 7, you take these opposing energies, right? You're going to end up with 8. And I just think it's fascinating, right? The eighth house is the house of destiny. Because it's almost like once you've basically made a choice and a decision on the people or the things that you're going to partner up with, right? Because you find, you love it, this works out, it's harmonious, whatever, right? Once you've made the decision, you're going to end up at the house of destiny. Period. That's what God's kind of saying too. And who made the decision? You yourself, or you better not let nobody else make the decision for you, and then blame somebody else later on when your destiny don't work out to be what it came to be. Right? When you can't get the inheritance that you planned on. If you're doing that, you're living life wrong. And I done been there. I can tell you, but wrong way to go. Okay. But what happens is that we always arrive at the eighth house. Now, the eighth house is a very mysterious house. This is the scorpionic house. It's the fixed house of fall, right? So when you falling and you're going, it's like that, right? You're going to go into deep waters, okay? And there's passion here. But you become a bit more aware too, right? Now you're a bit more aware of the people and relationships that you decided on, because cardinal positions are like when you initially go into something, right? So when you're first getting something started, you don't know everything it is to know about somebody, right? If you're just getting introduced to somebody who says they have a startup and they kind of present it from the first house, right? A nice, pretty picture. That's not the details though, right? That's not the real meat and potatoes of the situation. But once you arrive at the eighth house or you're there, you have a whole new understanding, deeper understanding of who these individuals are, what they're offering, right? And the fortune, destiny, and fates of said decision are here. This is where you're going to land. This is where we're all going to be. Nobody's above it. Nobody's absolved from it, right? Anytime we're making choices and decisions, and we're doing this all the time, we end up at the eighth house, right? And sometimes those choices and decisions can be like an inheritance, right? Like, ma'am, I got my money worth, right? Or I put my money that this situation and choice or this person that I'm banking on is going to pay off, right? Other times, Scorpio gonna sting your ass. Sometimes once you become aware of the partner that you have, sometimes when you become aware of the possessiveness that they have, sometimes when you become aware that they just as devout to they self and only they self, and they don't forget about the goddamn partnership, right? That shit stings. It can hurt. It's a bitter pill to swallow sometimes, right? But once you are at the eighth house, you can realize what the destiny and basically what it came to be based off those choices, right? Now with the alchemy, there is a bit of self and grace, right? Also this too, I like to say this too, right? First house, seventh house, again, these are kind of like initial energy, so they aren't really thick, right? And most of the time when you're trying to make commitments, and you are making a commitment in the seventh house, right? Once you're making those decisions and commitments, right, you have to let things go a little deeper. Okay. Venus is a very fickle house. The seventh house, like I said, it's just a tip of the scales whether this relationship works or not, right? So once you are at the eighth house, it does feel a little bit more like, okay, this feels deeper. We have a deeper connection, right? And most of us would like the connections that we have and the relationships that we have to go a little bit deeper, okay? Aries and, Libra shout y'all out, but these are not deep houses. These are not deep energies, right? These are the energies that help you get started, which getting started is great, right? But to really take you deep and transform things, eighth house, transformative, right? And what does the first house want to do? The first house wants to birth. Sorry. Get my cards mixed up. First house wants to birth, right? It's yourself. It wants to birth and create. Eighth house wants to transform and rebirth, okay? So if you got into a situation or a relationship with a business or a partner, it doesn't matter, right? Or a thing, right? If you were, cultivating a relationship with courage or, more discipline, right? But if you got into that relationship, right, you wanted to transform it. Because first off, I needed to create it, right? Putting the seed in the ground is not a plant. This is the plant. This is the harvest. This is where you can get your, which your just dues essentially, right? And these are the alchemies that we're working with here. Now, also what happens too is you get a double Mars. Mars rules the eighth house, and it also rules the first house. So there's a lot of fighting action when it comes to our relationships. Sometimes you gotta fight. What they do is I gotta fight every night to prove my love, right? Sometimes you gotta fight for that shit, right? And then sometimes you have to fight for boundaries in love, right? Sometimes you have to fight, worldly ideas for the people that we love, right? I have a lot of people and friends who are in the LGBTQ community before it was cool. And I'm a lady of a particular age, right? So before that shit was cool, it wasn't always easy to go out and hold hands with your partner if you were same gender loving, right? So sometimes it's a lot of fight just to kind of have those things that you love, right? If you have a talent for, songwriting, or you're a performer and entertainer, some of those people have amazing stories when it came to getting beyond the gatekeepers and the industries and stuff like that, right? So Mars is here twice. So anytime you have a passion or a drive to go after something that you love and you want to take it the long ways, there's a lot of fight. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of drive necessary. This is also too why love relationships can sometimes end up very harmful, right? Because sometimes, we love to fight. Sometimes we fight the people that we love. Yep, that is a thing. That is a thing. And it's not a happy thing, right? But it does happen. This is often sometimes too that once we've made a decision on a lover, the house of the eighth house, this is also known as the house of death, right? Now, death seems like it's, fatality and shit like that. But sometimes it could just be, I was a player, right? Now that I'm with this person no more, I don't want to be a player no more. Okay. Now that we booed up, we gonna be happily ever after soon. Okay. So this is kind of like a death to that old way of my first house looking like, right? Because now I'm at the destiny that I had, chosen to go to. Right now I've remixed it. I've rebirthed into something else, right? This is also too, like I said, and watch any episode of Snap, and you're gonna find some passion and desire. Any episode of any of these little shows that you be seeing where somebody then decided to because people, you should know better, okay? People got a motherfucking right to choose. Let me go back to this because let me just say this because we in them times, honey. Relationships, baby, it's a motherfucking choice. It's a decision. Yeah, we committed, but I might decide that I don't want to do this no more. And that's my right, okay? You don't get to sit up there and go eighth house on a bitch because I decided to take my love away. No, sir. No, ma'am. Okay? Some of these ladies got to learn that too, right? But that sometimes happens because, again, Mars is kind of drowning out Venus, right? So what was love could just be straight up force and fight and, I can't stand this motherfucker. And it could totally go into that, right? So this is why the alchemy is here to help us, to be supportive of us. And when we can see how these things are playing out, we can see why they played out the way that they played out, right? Now, there's one other cool thing about the alchemy that I wanted to mention before we get out of here, right? So let's say you do find yourself in a relationship that ain't working out. Or once you get to your eighth house, you realize this ain't what I planned for, bro. This ain't the destiny that this ain't the destination I was trying to get to. What you can do is you can always take your one away from that relationship, right? Take your one minus the 7. That's going to get you back to your 6th house. This is your house of routines, the house of service, and the house of health. Now, I know a little bit about this house because I'm a Virgo, but this is the Virgo house, right? This is where Mercury resides. Mercury, let's just say this real quick. Mercury is a planet that retrogrades the most because it's something about the mind that is necessary to revisit situations that it's at. And no matter where we are in the opposite alchemy, whenever you take and reduce the opposite energy from that house, you're going to end up at the number 6. We'll see that in the other houses that I do when this video, right? But let's just talk about the 7th house. Okay, so you're in a relationship and that relationship ain't working. Take your 1 away and then go back to 6, right? See if you're useful to the situation or if you're just being used. You need to revisit and see if there's some kind of routine that's constantly been happening that makes this relationship go out of balance, right? You came maybe to support life, with your Virgo talents and stuff like that, and routinely showing up for somebody in your 7th house. And then your ass leaving on life support because the motherfucker done left you high and dry, broke, then inherited all the good shit that you had from your first house. Now you're left with nothing. And sometimes relationships can do that, right? But that's okay. Like I said, Mercury keeps us busy. It will retrograde, and it will help you revisit and reconsider ways and analyze ways of how to look at what's really healthy for you. Okay, because the relationships that we get in, I mean, you can get in any relationship, right? But is it healthy? Is it going to serve you? Is it really going to help you go far, right? Or would you have been just better doing it by yourself? Who knows, right? But this is the alchemy that we're offered here by way of these oppositions. And guys, that either way, you're going to learn, and I'm learning every day too. So that's pretty much all I got. I don't want to make this video too long. I hope some of the things that I said make sense. I hope that it offered, something cool for you to kind of sip on and marinate on. But I also hope that you come back so we can have some more of these conversations. We're going to go through the whole bit of all the opposing energies and the alchemies that they offer. Until then, guys, I will see you guys next time. Thank you for joining me, and y'all take care. Love y'all. Bye.